Yesterday, we talked about the bathroom wars that have erupted on Capitol Hill. Delaware elected the first trans congressman who identifies as a congresswoman. This necessitated Republicans, beginning with Nancy Mace, to introduce a measure clarifying that only actual women can use the women's restroom. Well, the update is that yesterday, Speaker Mike Johnson announced that indeed men were banned from women's facilities at the Capitol. This is only a day after Johnson had initially been too shy to say, whether the trans Congressman Sarah McBride is the name he goes by now, is actually a man. A day later, he banned him from the women's room. And now we have the response from McBride, reading from the Daily Wire. It says, the trans-identifying congressman at the center of a Capitol Hill bathroom battle has agreed not to use the women's facility following a mandate from House Speaker Mike Johnson. Sarah McBride, a newly elected representative from Delaware who identifies as a transgender woman, issued a statement on Wednesday saying that he will abide by Johnson's Wednesday directive that all single-sex facilities in the Capitol and House office buildings are reserved for individuals of that biological sex. McBride said, I'm here to fight for Delawareans and to bring down costs facing families. Like all members, I will follow the rules as outlined by Speaker Johnson, even if I disagree with them. So he's not going to fight over bathrooms because he knows it's a losing fight for him. A few years ago, he definitely would have fought over the bathrooms. And we know that trans activists have fought over the bathroom issue quite a bit. I mean, the whole reason it is an issue in the first place. But now he can't win, and he knows that. Nancy Mace, meanwhile, announced that she's following this up with a bill to extend the ban to all federal buildings. Watch.
Hey everyone, I told you I wasn't going to stop with Capitol Hill. I'm filing another bill tonight that would ban biological men from women's spaces on all federal property all across the country. This fight starts here. It starts now. Men are not allowed in women's spaces, period. Full stop, end of story.
Now, I would certainly stop short of saying that the fight starts here. The fight actually started many years ago, so it doesn't actually start here. Republicans in Congress are just now joining the fight, which is great. Now, I'm glad they are. I mean, this is a hugely positive development. And you just kind of have to deal with the fact that, this is the way it goes. This is politics. They're going to start sort of taking credit and positioning themselves as leaders on an issue, even though in reality they're actually following our lead. That's all fine. It's how it goes. And I mean that. I'm not just saying it sarcastically. This is how we win. This is the process of winning. We need to drag the Republican Party kicking and screaming over to where we are. And one of the ways you incentivize them to do that is that, when they finally come over to where we're standing, they can, start talking about how they're taking the lead in the fight and all that kind of stuff. And I'm okay with it because it's all part of winning. But it does really show you something important. Like here, look at this tweet from Nancy. Nancy Mace put this tweet out yesterday. She said, your mental illness will not become my new normal. Again, great. I totally agree. It would have been totally unthinkable for a Republican to put out a tweet like that 3 years ago. I mean, almost no elected Republican would have spoken that way even 2 years ago. And now here we are. And it's really emblematic of something. The whole Republican Party. I mean, this is what you see in this. You see it in this fight, in the way that these Republicans are talking about this, the kinds of things that they're saying, which again, I mean, you go back 5 years ago, it's just, it would never happen that they would speak this way about this issue. They would not do it. 5 years ago, most Republicans were still using preferred pronouns and all that kind of stuff. But now they're not, and now the whole Republican Party has lined up on the side of sanity and common sense. And sometimes using quite blunt and unvarnished language, which is great. And in the past, they wouldn't all line up on the side of sanity and common sense, certainly not using this kind of frank, straightforward language. And now they are. Meanwhile, the other side had backed down and backed away immediately from this bathroom fight. We know that, quote unquote, Sarah McBride accepted defeat. There really were very few Democrats. AOC was out valiantly defending the rights of men to use the women's room in the Capitol. And there are probably a couple other Democrats, but not that many. That's the other very noticeable thing here, which also shows you why McBride had to come out and say, I'll use whatever, I'll follow the rules, I'm not interested in this fight. It's because nobody had his back on this, or very few people did. And it just shows again that we're winning on this issue. Not just winning, but dominating. And I don't think the other side can recover. So I'm not trying to spike the football too early or whatever. And I'm not saying that we can stop paying attention to this issue and that it's all fixed and finished. It's obviously not. But yeah, I think that they are losing badly, and I don't think they can reverse it. I think, see, what we've been fighting for this whole time, and this was, if you go back again, you go back to the earlier days of this current fight against gender. Gender ideology has existed for a lot longer than the last 10 years, but this kind of current fight against it, and when it first sort of exploded into mainstream society back in 2013, 2014, around there, and you go back to then, and those of us who were in the fight even all the way back then, it always felt, it was like living. You just felt you were living in a bizarro world. There's this crazy thing happening that's obviously wrong. I mean, we're being told to call this person's a man. We're being told to call the person a woman. Give them access to women's bathrooms. Like, what's going on here? Why are we doing this, people? How is this? How is everybody okay with this? And that's what it felt like. It felt like being in this kind of bizarro world, and it was like this fever dream. And you just need people to wake up. As I've been saying this whole time, it's like you don't have to explain to most people why men shouldn't be in the women's room. Most people understand that. But it's like so many Americans were, and certainly our political leaders, supposedly on our side, were walking around in like a trance or something. And you just had to shake them awake. Like, hey, look at this. This is crazy, guys. You see what's happening here? Look at this. Right? We all agree this is nuts. Say something. And you always knew, even going back to the beginning, that the moment people, the moment they're jostled out of that trance, the moment you can shake them awake and they see it for what it is, it's over at that point. It's over. And the reason that it's over is because the other side, they don't have any argument they can present for this at all. They have nothing. There's no argument for it. It's the most indefensible thing ever, really. And so once everybody was awake and saw it for what it is, it's basically game over. And I think people are awake now. They're awake to the trans agenda. I don't think they're just going to fall back asleep. And then eventually you reach a critical mass in society where it's perfectly socially acceptable now for somebody to stand up and say, yeah, men are men don't belong in the women's room. Perfectly socially acceptable. There's no reason to be worried about saying it. Of course, it should have been socially acceptable the whole time, but there was, again, that bizarro period in American history, recent American history, when somehow it wasn't socially acceptable. Once that goes away, they got nothing on the other side. So I think it's a losing battle. I think that they're now it's kind of a cleanup job on our part to find the remnants of this agenda everywhere that it's hiding and root it out and get rid of it. That's what it comes down to. Hey YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.